Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the 814 Sports Report and the Sunday Sports Blitz. Alongside John Lydic, I'm Chris Sohl. And John, we are a week away from the start of the high school football season. You and I have been busy running around collecting previews of all the local teams in the area. It's exciting. Football's back.
It is. It's a labor of love. We enjoy it, getting out there to the camps, getting to see these kids and learn a little bit about this. Again, we don't have the opportunity to go in depth, but we want to give you a little sample of what your community can expect from your football team. Where better place to start than in the two combatants in Region 6, the two 6A schools in our region, and that's in Region 6 this year that includes just Erie High and McDowell. Chris, you were out at both.
Yeah, I was, and interesting stuff, I think, for McDowell, coming off a season record-wise, maybe not thrilled with how things went. The biggest storyline with McDowell is Brody Bonsall is graduating. He had, I think, around 1,300 yards rushing the ball last year. You had the chance to see him live. Fantastic running back for him. But when I was at camp, Aaron Slocum just reiterating the fact how hard they worked this year, the intensity at camp was there. You could tell this team is ready to play. And I think the biggest storyline for McDowell is what are we going to see from Deontay Flemings this year? Obviously the 4-star recruit heading to Penn State next year. Kind of plays all over the field. I expect really big things out of him. And despite Bonsall graduating, we're still going to see a really heavy rushing attack out of McDowell as they look to bounce back.
Out of the quarterback position, I know Flemings had to step in an emergency last year. Do they have somebody that they're looking to this year?
Not specifically one person. I think we're going to see a couple different guys go in there. You know, we'll have some guys who are maybe more of that prototypical pocket passer, whereas maybe some athletes kind of going in there. But you know, the coaches tell us things, but they also don't want to give too much away.
Right.
They know that all the other coaches are seeing things, so they want to keep things quiet.
Switch it over to Erie High. I know the Royals under Coach Henderson trying to take that next step to try and be right there neck and neck with McDowell.
John, they were 1-10 last year, but really competitive. They lost about 5 or 6 games to one score, and that's something that Andre Henderson really reiterated to me, was the fact that, you know, they had that week 1 thriller against Cathedral Prep that they dropped in triple overtime. Our Logan Episcopo was there. One of the most exciting games out of any game all year last year. And it's a young roster, but we know Erie High. They are full of incredible athletes. They're going to be going, obviously, Paul Johnson graduates, a really dynamic dual threat quarterback. So he's gone. More of a pocket passer running this offense. Coach Henderson confident in what we can see out of the quarterback room, running the offense, getting through the reads. Athletes all over the field. I expect them to be much better in 2026.
We'll see how it all plays out. They'll, of course, play twice, regular season and then in the postseason. All right, Region 5, jam-packed. It's going to be all the 4A schools, Chris, as some schools reclassifying, including Cathedral Prep dropping from 5A to 4A. I was down at the Ramblers. The big thing for them is going to be who replaces Davin Friedman at the quarterback position. 2 guys duking it out. So, of course, Coach Mishler was not going to dive back. The big thing for them is going to be the offensive line is back for them. They're going to have Colton Cleveland and Jose Colon, 2 names that are going to anchor that unit. And then they have quite the linebacking core. Tucker Pilatus, one of those names that is going to be alongside Camden Miller. Those are going to be 2 guys they look for on the defensive side. Meanwhile, a couple of new head coaches in the region before we break down some others. Warren and Franklin, 2 new coaches, and so we'll see what we get out of them. Coach Ion down at Franklin, and then Jody Baum out at Warren, 2 guys. Jody, you can tell, he wants to try and find that old style of Warren football, something that they could be proud of. It's been a tough couple of years. It's going to be the 3rd coach in 3 years for them. And then Coach Ion down at Franklin, Austin, you know, hey, young guy, only 28, but he has the enthusiasm. He thinks that he has the players there. Now it's about molding them in the right vision and getting them there. But I know, Chris, bringing it back to our region, you were out at Harbor Creek, and I know the Huskies are going to be pesky, as they have for the last couple of years under Coach Anger.
Yeah, they also were one of the teams to class up due to enrollment. A surcharge in enrollment there. Coach John Anger likes to keep things simple. Every team in District 10 needs to be able to run the football, and you can't turn it over. They bring back Gavin Zillman, another really dynamic player. Played a lot of quarterback for them last year. And Coach Angerer hinting we could see him more as a running back this year. Also, Tyler Angerer, John's son, all-region lineman, he's coming back to join the corps. So Harbor Creek, you mentioned, they're frisky. They're going to run the ball really tough. And I feel like, John, if you have really good athletes in this region, you're going to be pretty successful. And then I'll jump over to General McLean. John, really since head coach Marshall McCormick has gotten to McLean, they have been a powerhouse year in and year out. Matt Cairo, their senior quarterback last year, maybe one of the best pocket passer, pure throwers of the football in District 10. He graduates, but little brother Josh is right there to replace him. Marshall McCormick really confident in the way Josh has played. He said, listen, he actually was joking to me. He's like, he's not Matt. He's not going to throw the ball like Matt, but he is more of that dynamic athlete running outside the pocket, making plays with his legs. And he even joked, Josh may be a little smarter up top than his older brother Matt.
So he's the Eli to Peyton as well.
Yes. So they're really disappointed, obviously, after falling to Oil City last year. This is one of the better offenses we've seen in D10, so they look to bounce back in 2026.
Speaking of the aforementioned Oilers, they've got the line that's been coming together for the last couple of years that has been younger. Well, now it's about flipping the script. They got to replace the quarterback, the running back, wide receiver. But as Coach Dan York, other than that, we're doing fine. But he always has a number of running backs that can step in and do a good job down there. So we'll see what they can do both there, and the linebackers are going to be another key for the Oilers. And then finally, wrapping up here is Meadville. I talked to Coach Ray Collins. Again, another team that the young offensive line, now the mature group, it's about ushering in the skill guys. We know one thing, Meadville's going to run the ball, and they're going to find an effective guy to do just that. So between Region 5 and Region 6, the top two classes that are 6A, no longer a 5A school in District 10, but those 7 4A schools, it's going to be an exciting brand of football.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to discuss all the rest of the regions and all the rest of our high school football previews coming up next. Stay with us. All right, John, we touched on Region 6 and Region 5 for our high school football previews. You were the beat reporter for Region 4. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Let's first, I guess we'll get this out of the way to start things out. The region consists of Conneaut, Fort LaBeouf, who is shifting out of the region with all the other old Erie County League teams down. They're going to probably have the most road miles, I think, in District 10 in terms of travel, other than maybe a Warren or Eisenhower that, of course, are out in Warren County. But they shift into this region with Titusville, and then, of course, the southern schools that are the staples, the Slippery Rock that can be up and down. They're one of the only other school ushering in a new head coach. And then Grove City, Hickory, Sharon, that is usually that 1, 2, 3 right there, or 3 or 4 in Class 3A. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's still Hickory and Sharon is what everybody's chasing, and we'll get into some of the other 3A schools that are in Region 3 in a little bit. But I think I'll take my shot to start at Fort LaBeouf. Talked about it. It's going to be a lot of travel, but I talked out there to Coach Justin Bloss about the fact, hey, usually you'll get one game against these southern schools, and now you get to see all 3 of them. How beneficial. He's like, hey, we're going to know how to be that team that can travel to the south, and in essence, you're going to get that shell. You're going to know what to expect come the 3A football. It's not going to be as much of a surprise there. So he likes that. Of course, they have a number of seniors coming back. Xavier Blows is one of them. And you also have Dominic Walters coming back at the quarterback position. And then, stop me if you've heard this before, a lot of young guys that had inexperience a year ago building up that offensive line. Carson Stoll's one of the big ones in the unit that I talked to. They're an excited football team, and they won the region last year when they were in, I believe that was Region 4, the old Region 4 of the last 2-year cycle. But yeah, it's going to be a good barometer of where they're at going into the playoffs, because they're going to see those southern schools that they're going to go head-to-head for a district title.
Plan to replace Skylar Sadowski in the backfield?
Yeah, I think they have a couple of different options there. Some guys that saw some time. Now it's about who can step into it. Those are the big ones. Mikey Vamaro was a guy that if Dominic wanted to throw on the outside. Again, LaBeouf has started to slowly progress. I think they've seen some of what, not to the same extent, what General McLean, their longtime rival, has been, and how their passing game. Again, it's still one of those Erie County League teams that we're going to pound and ground, we're going to build up a big offensive line, and we're going to try and run the football. But they got to replace Skylar Sadowski, who was otherworldly. I mean, when Logan was covering Fort LaBeouf, it seemed like every week last year, and it was the Skylar Sadowski show. Mikey Vamaro had a number of big replacements, so they'll look to a couple of guys on the outside at Fort LaBeouf. Meanwhile, let's go to Conneaut. What a story they've been, because I think when I first started here in 2016, they were a school that were right there. They were competing. The MASH-Cash rivalry that everybody in Crawford County knows was big. And then it was kind of trying to figure things out. How could they get things going? And then Josh Blood comes along. Of course, first year of a program, you're building, you're trying to figure things out. The last 2 years, they've gone to the playoffs. Of course, they've lost both years to Sharon in the first round. But this is a group that returns they're the opposite. They got a young offensive line that's learning. They've liked the work that they've seen from that unit, but they've got everybody else coming back, a number of names at Conneaut, and they said, listen, all right, we're done just making the playoffs. We want to win some games. So that's the big thing, but Josh Blood said for many of the seniors like Chance Meter, Aiden Ford, some of those guys that have toted the rock, and a couple of others that I talked to, that we're done watching just getting there. As seniors, we want to win football games, and I think they're highly motivated to do so. And Coach Blood said they've seen the worst of times, and they've now started to see the best of times. Now it's how do we build upon it.
Also, adding to that, Titusville, you also visited them as well.
Yeah, Titusville, Coach Reynolds, you want to talk about, again, I think it's great to go out to these camps, as we mentioned off the top. Coach Reynolds is one of the more pleasant coaches that we get to. And I know each coach has a personality, and I love and respect each of the coaches' personality. Always good. Hey, how you doing? It's going to be a building year for his group. I mean, there's no doubt. He was talking to me about it. Listen, they lose their lead back from a year ago that does not return, and then they're going to be replacing a couple of other pieces. They were a group 2 years ago. They had a big junior class, and they got to the playoffs and found some success. And then took a little bit of a step backwards last year, but now it's going to be about, hey, can we have the same enthusiasm in the program, but build it around the young guys? Of course, there's going to be some key seniors that are going to be a part of it, but it's going to be about how they build that foundation through the youth. And I think Coach Reynolds, he liked the commitment. He said, you hear about that 1,000-pound club that, a bunch of guys hitting that mark.
A lot of coaches really honing in on the strides with the off-season training program and in the weight room specifically. I feel like last year was more about the football and the excitement, surviving heat weeks, being healthy for a heat week, then getting the pads on, bringing that physical element of football that everybody loves. But this year, so many coaches providing valuable insight into the way they went about their off-season training, how important the weight room is. And you mentioned, every team wants to run the ball down in between the tackles. In order to do that, you have to be a gifted physical athlete.
Well, and I think it was interesting, too. He said they had 3 pillars, and they're avoiding my old brain at this point. But, he was really excited about that. The interesting thing that I said to a number of coaches when we were out at these camps is it's probably just perception. Last year's senior class, seemed to be ginormous in terms of the contributors. There's schools everywhere that are replacing key spots across the lineup. So we'll see how it goes. But I think this is going to be an interesting region. Again, until proven otherwise, I'm a big guy in history. Historical trends say it's going to be one of those big 3, Grove City, Hickory, and Sharon. But I think Fort LaBeouf is certainly going to be up to the task to try and challenge some of those. And who knows what Conneaut brings. Mason Stone, I believe, is the quarterback. He's coming back, so they have experience there. Could Conneaut be a player? I think it's going to be a tough year for Titusville, and then some unknown and slippery rock because of the new head coach. But knowing the program and the athletes that they have down there, always an impressive group from what they can provide.
You never know. It feels like every year there's one team that kind of comes out of nowhere. We'll talk about the team that was in 2025 in the next segment, but stick with us. We still have Regions 3 and 2 and a little bit of Region 1 to get to when we come back. Stay with us. All right, everybody, welcome back. We've talked about Region 6, Region 5, and Region 4. It's time to get to Region 3, John. One of the more interesting regions, I think, when you look at these teams. Some maybe unproven teams in here, some teams looking to maybe make a jump. And then I'll get things started off with my team last year that was one of the first teams I worked with, was the Northeast Grape Pickers. And what a story they were. They more than tripled their win total from 2024 to 2025. They won 9 games last year under head coach Chris Krahowski. He won the PIAA. I forget what the full title was, but
the NW Northwestern Pennsylvania Football Coaches Association, NWPFCA.
Yeah, Coach of the Year. What he's done with that program has been incredible. They won a playoff game last year against Grove City. Really just shocked everybody. They are losing some players, but also bringing back a lot of players, which is important. Obviously, the big guys going out. Carter Crozier, one of the more dynamic athletes overall in the area. Track athlete, played basketball, played football, obviously. Was a big wide receiver for them. Logan Lattimore, the impressive tight end, defensive end, graduates. But Bryson Galloway returns. And what a breakout story he was last year. Another guy that can run it. He can throw it. And I think the biggest thing Coach Grahowski stressed to me was, yes, we're losing Carter, we're losing Logan, two big receiving threats, particularly in the red zone and the ability to stretch the field. But a lot of these younger weapons, I think, are ready to take that next step. This is a really well-conditioned team. When I went to their training camp a few days ago, Chris Grahowski loves the fitness testing, loves the 40-yard dash, the 3-cone drill, the foot ladder. So important with that offensive line in particular. Everybody looks at the size and the strength and just the brute force these guys have. But the footwork and the athleticism up front is so important, especially when you want to run these dynamic concepts where you're swinging tackles and getting the ball outside. And Chris Grahowski, one of the better football minds in the area. I'm excited to see what Northeast does this year. Their biggest statement was they want to prove that 2025 was not a fluke. This has been a program that struggled mightily recently. They had the breakout year last year. They played really, really impressive football. They're looking to make a statement in 2026.
And we'll see how it all goes. In this region, it breaks down to Corey, Fairview, Northeast are the 3A schools. The other 4 schools, Girard dropping down to 2A, Seneca 2A, Northwestern to 2A, and then Eisenhower 2A. Wrapped up my camp coverage at Fairview. It's going to be a younger team. They had a number of seniors in the biggest thing for them, and I was talking to Mark Soboleski, is he's like, man, we have just had a bad run of injury luck. Of course, Vinny Campoli in a couple of years prior, and then last year I think they went through 3 or 4 quarterbacks by the end of it, and calling some of those games for our game of the week. So they liked some of the returning guys, specifically the linebacking core is what they were talking about. To me, is one of the strengths of this group. So we'll see how they can figure things out. They felt that they had their number 1 choice at quarterback. They didn't want to divulge that, though, before their week.
Don't put anything on film that doesn't need to be.
You want to talk about, too, Chris, another camp that I had the opportunity and privilege to go out to. Boy, what a story the Corey Beavers have been the last couple of years. I know we talked so much in the previous segment about Conneaut's turnaround. Corey and what Jeff Goodwill has done out there has been impressive. Now, again, the big thing for them, they didn't run the ball all that well last year, but they're going to look to a guy like Lamech Albers coming back to try and establish that run game, because they're going to be ushering in a new quarterback after the last couple of years. And then the 2 big receivers, Keaton Frasina and Blake Cook, it seemed like they were catching everything, but they also have Sterling coming back at the wide receiver. He saw some playing time, so I think that's going to be an interesting group to keep track on. And then you see these 2A groupings. Girard dropping down there, but good. How about this stat? 22 seniors for Mark Brooks' club, and he said a lot of them are guys that are coming out for the first time this year. So he's excited to try and fill some of those roles out there. You hear all the time, like, hey, I want to give the sport a try in my senior year. That's what's happening in Girard, but Mark Brooks' group has been building. Ryan St. Julian, the biggest key to that cog out there for the Yellow Jackets, returns at quarterback. So we'll see. He said the biggest thing, too, is they now think like he and his staff. The first year he was like, we were shouting things out, and the kids were looking at us with that glazed look like, I think I know what you're talking about, but I have no clue. And then the other 3, Seneca, they bring back a couple of guys. Zach Moats, the big one in the running back position. Dalton Boyd saw some time at quarterback last year for Rylan Harwood, so he'll step in at the quarterback position. And they have a couple of other guys. Another team with a young offensive line that's going to have to figure it out. And then the last 2, Northwestern, Ben Fennell in his second year. Braden Swift was a key quarterback. Rylan Copeland's going to be the name to step in there at the quarterback position. How he can take over. They're a team that they've got the big boys. It's all about the chemistry that they're going to have on the front line if they can try and run the ball and get the necessary parts out of their passing game. And then finally at Eisenhower, what can you say about Jim Penley? I mean, those guys are just gritty, tough guys out of Warren County. He said he likes the starting offensive line. They're looking to build a little bit of depth as this camp has gone along. It's going to be about replacing a lot of those skill position players as the season goes along. But it's interesting. You got almost the old Erie County League. I wasn't around for it. I know you certainly weren't, but the old Erie County League region, and then you throw in the Warren County team there in Eisenhower.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. I just think it's so fascinating how many different teams are reclassing, fresh competition, new motivation. All these seniors in their last year should make for a fun season. Last up is Region 2 when we return after a short break. Stay with us. Alrighty, our last region that we were able to get to camps for was Region 2. John, I did the majority of these teams in Region 2 as you took care of a lot of 3 and 4. I'll get things started down at Union City. Head coach Michael Wydro, I think the most interesting thing he said to me is throughout his short time with Union City, this group is more bought into what they're selling than any group has been before. That was the biggest thing I took away from Union City. I thought that was really interesting. Their phrase this offseason has been choose hard. So rather than choosing the easy route out, rather than taking a break, making difficult decisions to get this team over the hump. A little bit of a frustrating year last year. They're in a new region, excited for new competition as well. Another thing, they're returning 20 of 22 starters on offense and defense. So some youth in the group, but also a lot of veteran experience, which should bode well for them. Then you have Iroquois, head coach Manny Johnson, recognizing the fact that maybe in the past couple years, the team hasn't really been up to the standard of the necessary football IQ in order to execute. He feels more confident in the group this year. Another pesky team, wants to really run the football, a physical defense, a bunch of good athletes for Iroquois. Excited to see what they bring. I was down at Maplewood, another one of these smaller schools, kind of looking to, they felt, despite the record last year, very similar to Erie High, losing a lot of close games, especially towards the end in the second half. Red zone execution for them was pretty disappointing, not able to finish drives, settling for field goals or not being able to punch the ball in. They're bringing back a couple of key players as well, so Maplewood looks to make a jump this year. Then down at Sagertown, a really young group, particularly in the trenches. They dealt with some injuries last year, but the offensive line is comprised of majority sophomores, which is really interesting. I think a lot of these successful teams have more of that veteran-laden group when it comes to the offensive line. So look for Sagertown to rely on the big guys up front, run the football really tough. And then down at Cambridge Springs, Nathan Liberty, what a pleasure it is to talk to him. A guy that just has
Nate is a fun guy to talk to.
A guy that just has a ton of energy. They're coming off an 8-4 season. I think looking at the rest of these teams, outside of maybe Mercyhurst Prep, Cambridge Springs is the team that I'm looking to have another successful season. They won a D10 title a couple years ago, looking to get back to that. A really focused group, a really focused defensive group in particular. In one of the huddles I was in, the defensive coach mentioning, we're running these college schemes, these college blitz packages. And the big thing for them was they emphasized how much film and how much film room study they performed during the school days, watching different offenses and how to attack them and how to limit them. Cambridge Springs ran the ball almost more than anybody last year. Both of their backs nearly at 1,000 yards. They both graduated last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they can replicate that rushing offense. But a physical team, a disciplined team, and a really intelligent team based on all the film that they watch.
You take a look at it too. You mentioned the team, Mercyhurst Prep. It starts with Vinny Feliciano. I mean, the kid from his sophomore year 2 years ago burst onto the scene, literally, and that burst has been what's propelled this Mercyhurst Prep team. They've met the match of Farrell and Greenville. Greenville 2 years ago, Farrell they lose to last year. It's the same thing though, big offensive unit up front on the line. And then Vinny, and I said, I was talking to Coach Root about like, hey, what do you need? He's like, we just need to be more dynamic. The more guys that can step up, whether it be the quarterback position, wide receiver, or to give Vinny, a play off, is like, the more dynamic we can be, goes without saying, the harder it is for defenses to defend, and that opens up because Vinny Feliciano does not need a lot of space. The interesting quote from him is he's like, my offensive line is like a big teddy bear. They just like hold me and keep me safe, and I just run through the line. So they're going to be, I think, obviously a good program. They dropped from 2 to 1A. I mean, there was a time they were in the 3A championship game. I think it was 2018. Now here they are about 8 years later, and they dropped down to 1A, but still going to be a power. Chris, I know you were at Sagertown as well, another school that is looking to replace a couple of pieces.
Yeah, just dealing, I think last year, speaking with their coach, just dealt with a lot of injuries in the offseason. We discussed it a little bit earlier, but really he was a big emphasis on the weight room and just how important it is for these guys, especially the younger kids who are coming in. They haven't played varsity football. It's a big jump in physicality, both from a strength, from a speed, from an understanding and processing the game. He mentioned, potentially 3 or 4 different guys vying for a quarterback spot. Not really sure, not holding any information, but not really sure how that's going to play out. Really wants to just focus on the basic act of snapping the ball, successful handoff, just running successful offense. But a team that's really going to rely on their offensive line, a lot of big guys up front. And really, a couple of games I went to there, pretty good crowd there, pretty good environment there. They like to get down and dirty and run the ball, as many of these teams do. And then last up,
would be Cochranton. John Swerbley back for his 3rd year. You have Walker Carroll graduating, a big part. His brother Noah is going to be a quarterback. He said the big thing that John said was the fact that, hey, he now thinks it as a quarterback. I can explain it to him once, and I don't have to do it again. He understands the processing and what he needs. They're going to be looking to a couple of different options at the running back position with Walker graduating. He also played wide receiver. The big thing is just going to be health for these guys. Again, the numbers weren't huge down at Cochranton, but Coach Swerbley said, I like our guys. They're committed. They're here, and we're going to coach them up. So that's going to be a good unit. Also want to mention, too, Region 1. Again, most of those Mercer County schools, Wilmington, Reynolds, Sharpsville, Greenville, Mercer, and Farrow, did cover Lakeview. Blake Reddick back for another year, his group 1 and 9. They loved the youth that they had, the excitement around the program. There's a couple of seniors that took real onus of wanting to keep these guys accountable. So they're going to look to build off a 1 and 9 year and try and bounce back down at Lakeview.
John, 27 camps in just over a week and a half. Really exciting stuff. Football Fridays return in 8 days at the time of this recording. We hope you join us, and we thank you for tuning in to another episode. We are really excited to bring everything to you. Lots of fun stuff coming your way. Thanks for tuning in.